So Hare Krishna, everybody. This is Krishna Dasa. Welcome you all. Today we're going to start chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. Before we start, let's invoke the mercy of Lord Shri Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So usually the format is, before we start the chapter, we play whatever shlokas we're going to cover in that chapter. So let's do that first. Today we are going to cover 3 shlokas, the first 3 shlokas of chapter 2. So I'll play that, you can just listen to it.
Atha dvitiyodhyayah Sankhya Yoga Sanjaya Uvacha Tam tatha kripaya vishtam ashru purna kulekshanam Vishidantamidam vakyam uvacha madhusudanah Shri Bhagavan uvacha Utastvakashmadamidam vishame samupasthitam Anaryajushtamaspvargyam makirtikaram Arjuna Klaibyam asmagamah partha naitatvayupapadhyate Shudram hridaya daurpalyam tyaktvottishta parantapa.
Hare Krishna. So those are the 3 verses we're going to focus on today. So I think Poonamji would like to read the translations. Okay.
Hare Krishna to all, and thank you Vinayak and Kalpana for giving me this opportunity today. 2.1 Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana, Krishna spoke the following words. 2.2 The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all benefiting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to highest planets, but to infamy. 2.3 O son of Pratha, do not yield to this degrading importance. It does not become you. Give up such petty weaknesses of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna, Poonamji. So the chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita is titled Sankhya Yoga. Now this is where Lord Krishna begins to impart his teachings to Arjuna in the battlefield. Now in this chapter, the Lord will explain about the self, about the material world, and what is the relationship between these two. Now Lord Krishna will start by explaining the principles of Sankhya Yoga. Now Sankhya Yoga is one of the 6 schools of philosophy, Indian schools of philosophy. So there are other schools like Yoga, Nyaya, Mimamsa, Vedanta, so on and so forth. So Sankhya is one of those schools. It is a very analytical and intellectual analysis. That is what Sankhya is all about. And one of the key central idea of Sankhya philosophy is the concept of Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha means your higher self, your Atman. And Prakriti is the nature, the material, manifested material universe that you see around you. And Krishna will also explain that the ultimate goal of Sankhya Yoga is using this understanding of what is Purusha, what is Prakriti, what is the relationship between them. How do you use this understanding to gain liberation from this material world? That is the goal of Sankhya Yoga. So in this chapter, pretty much Lord Krishna is laying the foundations for the philosophy of Sankhya Yoga. And it is a very essential chapter for understanding the concept of liberation. And we will gain a deeper understanding into the nature of Purusha, Prakriti. It's a very profound kind of teaching from Krishna. And Krishna encourages Arjuna to practice self-control and detachment from material things in order to gain true wisdom. So Krishna explains to Arjuna that when you have self-control, when you practice detachment, then you can become free from fear. So here is where the profound teachings already starts, where Krishna says That is how you become free from fear, because fear does not let you experience peace and joy. Arjuna will tell Sri Krishna that, oh Krishna, I'm not able to cope up with this state of mind. I cannot take part in this battle. You have to be my spiritual teacher and you have to clear all these doubts that I have. And you have to impart the divine knowledge and give me wisdom, Krishna. So this is the chapter where Supreme Lord Krishna starts imparting divine knowledge to Arjuna. And among other things, one of the key takeaways from this chapter, apart from understanding soul, understanding Purusha, Prakriti, all of that, one of the other key takeaways would be Krishna telling Arjuna and all of us that we should always do our prescribed duties under all circumstances. Now, you will begin to see this pattern throughout Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna will explain something and then Arjuna will have 5 more questions. And then Krishna will go deeper and then Arjuna will have even more questions. So you have to understand that this question answer format is for the benefit of all of humanity. Because if Arjuna had not asked all those questions, then Krishna would not have had an opportunity to explain all this profound philosophy to us. And the other interesting thing I want to point out is that this is in second chapter, Krishna is referred to as Bhagavan. Bhagavan means God. So that's the first time Krishna is referred to as Bhagavan in the Bhagavad Gita. That will come here in the second chapter. Now, every chapter of Bhagavad Gita is important, needless to say. Everything that Krishna has said, nothing is unimportant. However, I would say that chapter 2 contains most of his teachings. It is the largest chapter in the Bhagavad Gita. It has 72 shlokas in it. And it's pretty much a condensation. So Krishna has tried to condense the entire Bhagavad Gita, the knowledge of it, in chapter 2. So the way, at a very high level, the way you should look at Bhagavad Gita is chapter 1 is kind of setting the context, setting the stage, introduction to all the characters. And that is chapter 1. Chapter 2 is the condensation of all the knowledge that Krishna is giving Arjuna and the rest of humanity. And then chapter 18 would be kind of a summary, where he will summarize everything that he has taught so far. And chapter 3 to chapter 17, he goes deep into every concept that he has explained in chapter 2. So that is kind of a sitemap for understanding the layout of Bhagavad Gita. As you all may remember, the first chapter ended with a great warrior, Arjuna, having a mental diarrhea. He was in a depressed state of mind. He was very confused. He was having a nervous breakdown. Now in chapter 2, Krishna starts addressing that problem. See, one thing to keep in mind is, just like Arjuna, whenever we are in a state of depression or whenever we feel like we are getting a nervous breakdown, we lose the ability to think objectively and clearly. It's a fact. During these times, we have to seek the guidance of some bona fide authority or guru. So in this instance, Arjuna is seeking the guidance of Sri Krishna, who is the Jagat Guru. So we have to always keep this in mind, because when we are in that situation, nervous breakdown and all of that, we will not be in a situation to make the right decisions. We are going to make mistakes. So we have to have that kind of humility and we have to reach out for assistance. So that is kind of one of the messages that we have to take away. So I don't know if Maheshji is here today, but in the last chapter, he had this question. Arjuna is such a great leader. He's such a great warrior. How can he have a nervous breakdown? This for a reason that the Bhagavad Gita portrays Arjuna in that situation. The reason and the kind of hint is that if this can happen to Arjuna, it can happen to anybody. And it is okay. All we have to understand is it's okay to be in that situation, but it's not okay to remain in that situation. Like somebody said, it's okay to fall down. It is not okay to remain fallen down. You have to get up. Just like that, it's okay to be nervous. It's okay to have these kind of confusions and questions. But then we have to seek guidance and try to get out of it. It's a very simple but very profound message. So the chapter 2 itself, you can classify that into 4 main topics. So the first topic is Arjuna Sharanagati. Sharanagati means total surrender. That is explained through Shlokas 1 to 10. So I will use the term Shloka and verses interchangeably. They both mean the same. The second topic is Jnana Yoga. Shri Krishna is going to explain about Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga is a part of Sankhya Yoga, just FYI. And that is between Shlokas 11 to 38. The third topic is Karma Yoga, or the Yoga of Action. And that Krishna will cover from verse 39 to 53. The fourth topic is a very special topic. It is called Sthita Pragya Lakshanani. That is traits of those who are steady-minded and wise. That is from Shlokas 54 to 72. So there is a word, Sthita Pragya, that you will come across in this chapter. And it is very unique to Bhagavad Gita because it's not present anywhere. It is not present in the Upanishads. It's not present in the Vedas. So Vedavyasji, he specifically coined this word for the Bhagavad Gita. So Sthita Pragya is a compound word. It consists of 2 words, Sthita and Pragya. So Sthita means established, and Pragya means wisdom or intellect. So Sthita Pragya basically means somebody whose mind is balanced, undisturbed, and established in wisdom. A Sthita Pragya is also a person who is always performing their duties while facing their struggles and battles with an even mind. It's very, very important. See, this is another very important thing to take away from Bhagavad Gita is whatever we just spoke about, Sthita Pragya, having a calm mind and all of that. It's very easy if you are a sannyasi, if you are a renunciate, if you are living in a mountain, in a cave, you have no obligations, you have no material obligations, you have no duties really, right? At that time, if it's very easy. I mean, if you can't be a Sthita Pragya in a mountain, in a cave, there is a serious problem with you. But it is not easy to be a Sthita Pragya when you are leading a normal life, when you are fighting your battles, when you are dealing with material issues. And Sri Krishna's teachings is for us. Sri Krishna's teaching is for the common people, is for people who are actively fighting and facing the struggles of everyday life and fighting with the material nature every day. It is for them. So you have to understand that it is all for us, and you don't have to be like a Swamiji or a Panditji in order to understand this. They are not the audience at all. The audience is people like us, common people. That is why the 2 main characters in Bhagavad Gita, the first one is Sri Krishna, who is a householder himself. And the second is Arjuna. He is also a householder. Both of them are leading by example. Both of them have always performed their duties. Like when Krishna was taking care of cows, he did his duty. When Krishna was a statesman, he did his duty as a statesman. When he was a king, he did the duty as a king. When he was a husband, he did the duty as a husband. Now he is doing his duty as a teacher. So that is one of the very key takeaways. So how can we stay in this world, take care of our duties and responsibilities, deal with the material world, and still attain perfection and attain liberation? That is pretty much what the Bhagavad Gita is all about. So in verse 2.54, Arjuna will ask Krishna details about Arjuna is going to tell Krishna, you are talking about the Sthita Pragya. Can you explain more in detail? So there Krishna will talk more in depth about this Sthita Pragya. So pretty much the other key takeaway is about fear. We are going to go into depth into each of these topics, as I mentioned, but now it's more like a summary. So we're going to cover a lot of topics in chapter 2. So again, a reminder is fear causes weakness of mind. And this weakness causes miseries. So the more spiritual we become, the more fearless, strong, and compassionate we become. That is one of the goals of spirituality. Spirituality doesn't mean you become weak. Spirituality actually means you become strong. Spirituality is the means to become fearless. It's very, very important. And the most beautiful aspect of spirituality that Lord Shri Krishna teaches in the Bhagavad Gita is that it teaches us to be fearless and compassionate at the same time. It's a very, very wonderful combination. See, even mercenaries are fearless. No, that's not the point. The point here is to be a compassionate warrior. So you are doing your duties, you are compassionate, and you are fearless. That is the combination that Krishna is teaching us how to achieve. That is pretty much the whole subject, I would say, in a way, of Bhagavad Gita. And the other thing is, there are many lessons to learn from Arjuna as well. It's not just Krishna who is teaching lessons. Arjuna is not preaching in the Bhagavad Gita, but we can learn a lot from Arjuna also. For example, we just spoke about one aspect of it. It is okay to have questions. It's okay to feel confused. It's okay to feel depressed. But what is necessary is to acknowledge that you are confused, acknowledge that you are not in the right state of mind, and seek guidance. And it is also very important to have humility and surrender to God, because that is what Arjuna is showing by example. He becomes humble. He's a great warrior. The whole world used to be afraid of his skills as a warrior. But in front of Krishna, he's becoming a very humble student. He tells Krishna, please teach me, please help me understand. So that kind of humility and surrender, we have to learn from Arjuna. Now, I want to share one more thing with all of you is, I have been associated with devotees, and during my association with advanced devotees, I have been told many times about their experiences. Almost every devotee who is in the path of Bhakti Marga, they have told me one thing which is common, is pride is one of the biggest stumbling blocks in our path to spirituality. And if our goal is to reach Krishna, the first thing we have to handle is our pride. As long as we have pride, we cannot reach Krishna. And Krishna doesn't, Krishna is very compassionate, is very forgiving, but the one thing he doesn't really like is pride. So if he sees pride in his devotees, he will really make sure that we first get rid of that. And that is something we always have to keep in mind. Because when a person becomes egoistic, in general, they lose the ability to realize God or connect with God. So some of the old time students would remember that we go into a lot of depths into this topic later on in the Bhagavad Gita, but right now at least keep this much in mind: humility, lack of pride, very important. So let us go through the verses now. So Sanjaya starts the second chapter by observing Krishna getting ready to talk to Arjuna. So here Sanjaya and Arjuna, they both are referring to Krishna as Madhusudana. Very interesting. Because the term Madhusudana means someone who killed the demon Madhu. That is what Madhusudana means. Now, Srila Prabhupada, in his commentary, he says that by referring to Krishna as Madhusudana, Arjuna is poetically indicating that Krishna should also kill his own doubts, just like he killed the demon Madhu. Now, another thing, very interesting thing is, although Sri Krishna is addressed as Madhusudana at least 4 times in the Bhagavad Gita, there may be more, but I have counted at least 4. A very interesting aspect is Lord Krishna did not kill the demon Madhu. If you read about Krishna's life, he did not really kill demon Madhu. Who killed demon Madhu? It was Lord Vishnu through the Hyagrava incarnation. It was like a horse-like incarnation. And it is mentioned in very old scriptures, the Puranas. And Lord Vishnu is God himself. That there is no doubt. Everybody acknowledges that Lord Vishnu is God, because there are those Trinity, right? Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara. So Vishnu is accepted as God. There is no debate there. So here, by addressing Krishna as Madhusudana, in other words, they are acknowledging that Krishna is Vishnu. This is a very important thing to keep in mind. Very poetically, they are establishing the fact that Krishna is also Vishnu only. And so this establishing that Krishna is Vishnu and Krishna is an incarnation of God happens at the beginning of chapter 2. So they said that, everybody accepts that, and then we proceed with the Bhagavad Gita. And so this is what happens, and Lord Krishna starts his discourse by explaining that we cannot run away from our problems, because the problems will keep chasing us until we face them. It is a reality of universe that, running away does not, you can run. There is a saying in the West, you can run, but you cannot hide. So we cannot keep running away from our problems. We have to eventually face them, because until we face our problems, they are going to keep chasing us. Now in verse 2.2, Krishna asks a very strong question to Arjuna. It's one of the strongest languages Krishna has used in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Kutasva kashmalamidam vishame samupastitam anaryujustam asvargyam kirtikaram Arjuna. Which means, from where have you got this cowardly weakness of mind, Arjuna? He uses the word kashmalam, which is in Sanskrit means, it signifies everything that is bad. So Lord Krishna says also, anaryujustam. Anaryujustam. 3 words in one word, basically. So he says a noble-minded person will never have this kind of attitude, Arjuna. See, anaryujustam means an-arya, not Arya-like. That is anarya. So what is Arya? We all have read that Aryans, they are a race, the Aryan race, right? But it's not really just a race. Arya implies a noble-minded person. That is what an Arya means. Because even Buddha spoke about the teachings as Arya Satyani. It's not about a race. It's about a noble-minded person. The noble truths. So in case of mental breakdowns, what happens, and if somebody is in a medical profession, they would know more about this. But when a patient is having a lot of mental breakdowns, sometimes we give them a shock treatment. Here Lord Krishna is giving the shock treatment to Arjuna, which Arjuna never expected. Arjuna thought, I'm going to say, Krishna, I have all these doubts, I have all these things, I'm having a mental breakdown, I'm feeling scared and everything. And he thought, no, Krishna will console him, cajole him. But Krishna starts by saying, Kutasva kashmalamidam. Arjuna, where have you got this cowardly mindset? Where did this bad attitude come from? It's a shock treatment. That's how he starts teaching to Arjuna. And the next verse is also very powerful, where he starts by using the word klaibyam. Klaibyam means unmanliness. It also means impotence. So Krishna tells Arjuna that this kind of unmanliness does not suit you, Arjuna. See, pay attention to how Krishna is scolding Arjuna. There is a lesson even there. He's telling Arjuna, Arjuna, this kind of attitude does not suit you. Such a beautiful way to scold somebody. This is the right way to coach others, especially juniors and children. Instead of saying something like, oh, you are so stupid, how can you do that? Or how can you be so idiotic and all? That's the very destructive, counterproductive way of scolding or reprimanding somebody. Instead, you highlight the strength of the person, and you can say something like, you are such an intelligent person. Such a behavior doesn't suit you. This will do wonders. The other person opens up. They become more accepting to what you are telling them, because you are now highlighting their strengths. This is exactly what Krishna is doing here. Krishna is saying, Arjuna, where has all this weakness come from? This kind of behavior does not suit you, a great warrior like you. So the basic teaching of Vedanta, if whoever missed chapter 1 and introduction, Vedanta is a collection of pretty much Brahma Sutras, Upanishads, and the Bhagavad Gita. Together they are called as Vedanta. So according to Vedanta, the true self of an individual is not the limited ego, but the eternal, unchanging, and divine consciousness, which is the soul. And our soul is also referred to as Atma. And it is identical to God. So even in the Western beliefs, we say that God made man in his image. So that's the same belief in Vedanta, is our soul is our reality. And that soul is a spark of the Brahman. And the basic teaching of Vedanta is that every living being is essentially divine, and all the suffering and weakness is not our true self. It's a very beautiful teaching. And that is also what Krishna is telling Arjuna. Krishna tells Arjuna, this does not suit you. In general, it does not suit any of us. Because the fear, the weakness, the anxiety, the nervous breakdown, the negative thoughts, negative emotions, that is not who we are. Our true self is our soul, and our soul is like God, and God is not weak. So that is the beautiful teaching of Vedanta that comes across in the Bhagavad Gita. So through Shlokas 2.2 and 2.3, we can extract the first pragma, or the first practical tip for success in spiritual as well as material world, which is, Deepaji, you know the first one. You want to tell us what the first tip is? Do you remember anything?
Do not feed your inner saboteur.
Exactly. Recognize the saboteur within you. Don't give in to it. Confront it and vanquish it. In the first chapter, we studied about the weakness of heart. We studied about the good dog and the bad dog. The bad dog is the saboteur inside each one of us. We have to confront it. We have to face it. See, the bad dog is like a thief. Take a guess. What do you think is the biggest fear of any thief, no matter how smart they are? Any guess? What is the biggest fear of any thief?
Death.
No?
To get caught.
To get caught.
Yes.
Of getting caught.
Yes.
He'll
The
be caught.
biggest fear of any thief, regardless of how smart they are, is getting caught. That is how your inner saboteur is. Your inner saboteur thinks it's very smart, but it is also afraid of being caught. So all you have to do to win over your inner saboteur is keep catching it. Be aware. Whenever you find yourself in a state of fear, ask yourself, where is this fear coming from? This is not me. Whenever you are almost going to make a wrong decision, ask yourself, is it me who is actually going to be making this decision? Does not look like it. And ask your inner saboteur, what are you up to? You keep catching your saboteur in action, the saboteur keeps getting weaker and weaker. And eventually you win. That is pretty much the gist of these 3 shlokas. So I think we can stop with that today. Hare Krishna. Again, thank you so much for your association and support and participation. We have a few minutes, so I can open the floor for any questions or any comments. If you have anything additional, you can add that as well. So I used to be a teacher before. I mean, not like a, I mean, before I entered corporate sector, I'm talking about 25 years ago. And what we as a teaching community always said was, if the class is totally silent, they either understood everything or they understood nothing. So I'm trying to figure out which one of these two is true here. Did somebody raise their hand? I'm not able to see everybody.
Vinod Prabhuji, I had a question.
Yes,
Why did Krishna impart this divine knowledge only to Arjuna and no one else?
oh, that's a very deep question. But actually, if you see, whatever Krishna imparted to Arjuna, there are many answers to this. One of the answers is, whatever Krishna imparted to Arjuna, Sanjaya could hear, Sanjaya could witness. And also it is said that even Bhishma and Dronacharya were able to Listen to that. And Vedas documented all of this. So Krishna chose Arjuna as a tool. It is not that, see, just like somebody asked in the last class, what is the guarantee that it was not a political war? First of all, there is evidence because the Pandavas were willing to take just 5 villages. I mean, they are the mighty Pandavas. And they are saying, we will be okay with just 5 villages. Like in those days, even ministers got villages. Here, the Pandavas were saying, we are okay with even 5 villages. But even when that was not fulfilled, that is when it became a dharmic war. But second thing is, Sri Krishna was God's incarnation. And it is documented that when he releases his Sudarshan Chakra, there was no defense against that. So there didn't have to be a war. Krishna could have ended the equation right there, right? But all this is happening as a setting an example for the rest of humanity. The biggest example is dharma is important. Even if adharma is very strong, if adharma may have the might, but dharma always has the right. Just like that, Arjuna was chosen as a tool because he was the perfect candidate. Arjuna was not like a weakling, and Arjuna is not afraid because he is a weak guy. Then it doesn't make sense, right? Arjuna was a very strong guy, and still he had these fears. So the message that had to come to humanity was, this can happen to anybody, and it is okay, and how to get out of it. I hope that answers your question, Anika ji.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Apart from that, there are other aspects like humility, lack of pride, and all of that. So later on in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna will say that Arjuna is a perfect student. So that also we will cover later on. Ekansh, you had your hands up.
Yes, Prabhuji. I was thinking, can we take it like this, that all nervous breakdown that Arjuna was having, it was because of the Krishna. He was God. He wanted him to feel so that he can give this knowledge to the world. Or we can say whatever we feel in our day-to-day life is only the Krishna who is turning our roads towards him. Can we take it as an example?
Sure, that's a beautiful way to look at it. The way you look at it is, it was all God's way of conveying the teachings to the world. If there was no Arjuna, these teachings would not have come to us. So it's a role play. So God creates these kind of situations and he finds candidates. So one thing that I would humbly tell everybody and request everybody to have this mindset is, we have to always look at ourselves as tools that are all here to help each other grow spiritually, because our ultimate goal of every human being is spiritual evolution. The ultimate goal is to realize God. Okay? And to that extent, whatever we can do, we have to consider that we are being made a tool by God. So Arjuna accepted to be that tool. Very humbly, with a big heart, he accepted being one of the biggest tools to help humanity understand all this divine knowledge. I hope that answers your question, Ekansh ji.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Poonam ji, you had your hands.
Yeah. Just now, as Krishna told Arjuna, Arjuna had questions. Arjuna had doubt. But if in front of us a person is there who is not ready to listen only, the perception what the mind has made, the person sticks to that and doesn't listen anything. How to handle that situation? How to handle that?
Yeah,
Doesn't want to listen. So like you go on telling anything, any gyan you give, whatever you say, but adamancy, that ego is, how to remove that?
See, it depends on who the person is, because it's not our job to fix everybody. So
leave it.
The best is, yeah, when people want to learn, they have to make an effort. So that's precisely what you will see even in Bhagavad Gita, where initially Arjuna and Krishna, they are just debating. It's a debate. You will see that. And only when Arjuna acknowledges And Arjuna surrenders and says, okay, now you are the teacher, I'm the student, now I want to learn. Only then Krishna starts teaching. So, like just like that, if the other person is not willing to listen, you have to ask yourself, is it your job to force that? You cannot force anybody to learn anything, right? They have to make an attempt. So that is the teaching in the Bhagavad Gita also.
Thank you.
Niravji, you have your hand up.
Hare Krishna, Vinayak. I have a question. Can Krishna's situation be interpreted as he's thinking more from the heart than from the mind? So it's not the fear, but his emotional maturity, or not able to, put into different criteria. There's a karma that is required to be done, and so it's not his fear, but he's more thinking from the heart because he's fighting his own people, and not thinking from his mind. Is this the right way of thinking?
That's a good question, Niravji. But actually, if you see the chapter 2, Arjuna, we will see that in the next few classes, is Arjuna makes a lot of excuses. And he tries to make it all look like intellectual reasons. Like he talks about dharma, he talks about social coherence, he talks about what is sin, what is not a sin. And also another thing to keep in mind is this is not the first time Arjuna is fighting a battle. In the Mahabharata, there are instances where Arjuna has defeated entire armies single-handedly. So people have a lot of fear for Arjuna. In fact, even in Mahabharata, with the exception of Karna, everybody said that Arjuna is probably the strongest archer. So that it's not something out of the heart that he was compassionate, because he has killed people before. And he has fought even people like Bhishma before, his own uncle. Okay. So it's not necessarily just a weakness of heart. It is a mental confusion as well. And that is why Krishna starts chapter 2 with his explanation of Sankhya Yoga. Because Sankhya Yoga is all about intellectual analysis and intellectual knowledge. So I hope that answers your question, Niravji.
No, thank you.
Guruji, I had a question. You mentioned that you got to be sthita pragya, which means a balanced mind. Now, very often you come across a situation where you got to be practical also. So there is where, how does one balance versus being practical? For example, in this situation where Arjuna is required to fight the war, and there he has his uncles in front of him, all his relatives. I mean, practically, does it make sense? Should he really fight? Of course, then it is explained, but I'm just giving you a real example as well as to how does one then look at practicality as well.
So I ask you a small counter question and then I will answer. So let us say you are a cop.
Yeah.
Your job is to catch people who are breaking the law.
Right.
You find somebody breaking the law.
Okay.
That person turns out to be your son.
Okay.
Are you going to catch him, or are you going to say, oh, it's my son, I'm not going to do anything?
I will catch him because he's broken the law. I mean, yes, he's my son, but then law is law.
Are you going to have a nervous breakdown?
In the personal capacity, yes.
Nervous
because
breakdown?
he's my son. Not nervous breakdown, but not a nervous breakdown. Not a nervous
exactly.
breakdown.
This is all Krishna is saying. Krishna is saying, first question to ask, what is your duty? If your duty is the duty of a Kshatriya, which is a warrior, a soldier,
right,
your duty is to protect dharma. So if somebody is on the side of adharma, it is your duty to fight. So first understand what your duty is. And second, don't have attachments. That's all Krishna is saying. So if you can understand what your duty is, stay on the side of dharma, always be on the right side, and don't be attached to outcomes.
right.
That is how you remain sthita pragya while doing your duties. So the word sthita pragya itself has an answer to your question, because sthita pragya means a person who is established in wisdom while performing their duties. If a person is established in wisdom, but they don't have to face any of these challenges, then they are not called a Sthita Pragya. They are called a sannyasi.
Okay. No, but then I have a follow-up question. Then why do we have so many court cases? Why are people fighting for financial assets, or for that matter, anything? I mean, you get my point. What I'm trying to say is like,
Yeah, I mean, people are not following dharma. That is the problem. People are not following the teachings of Krishna or other saints and sages. They are not following. People are selfish. People are deceitful. And that is why you have all these court cases and all of that. So that is the different issue altogether. We are not trying to solve the world's problems.
Right.
Bhagavad Gita's lessons are not for us to solve the world problem. Bhagavad Gita's lessons are to fix our problem. Bhagavad Gita's lessons are about how we can become a better person, how we get spiritual development. So that is what the teachings are all about, basically. Yeah, I'm happy to engage more with you, maybe offline.
Sure.
But yeah,
Thank
we'll
you.
make sure.
No, that's a good answer. It helps me to put things in perspective. Thank you.
So we are almost on time. If you have any more questions, please send it to me offline. I will address it either in the group or in the next session. And thank you again. I'll be respectful of everybody's time commitments, and we can call it a day. See you all during the next session. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.